champion, Garry Kasparov.
He is arguably the best chess master ever. Was number one in the world 22 years, longer than anyone else.
I'll try to do everything my best to win again, but I can't promise you.
Kasparov began touring, representing the Soviet Union at age 13. His first shot at the world title, controversial, 48 games over 6 months against incumbent Anatoly Karpov.
I therefore declare that the match is ended without decision.
He finally defeated Karpov in 1985, the youngest world champion, and went on mastering one opponent after another.
You sense this energy and this destructive force. He has this desire to not just to beat opponents, but to destroy them.
That force is now aimed at Russian President Vladimir Putin. For 10 years, Kasparov's been an outspoken critic, mobilizing opposition.
Seeing now the total collapse of the rule of law in Russia.
Those words got him arrested again. In 2013, Kasparov left Russia for good, settling in the US, taking on human rights, and still trying to check his most formidable opponent, President Putin. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. So many watching this will say, you know, they know you as one of the world's best chess players, certainly of this generation. They probably may not know a lot about your politics. When, for you, was the moment that you thought, I have to turn my passion and fury towards politics as opposed to chess?
I grew up in the Soviet Union, and in my country, chess was a very important ideological tool for communist regime. So that's why fighting for the world title, especially against Anatoly Karpov, was a darling of the system. I mean, it made me political. I recognize that what I did while playing chess and being the world champion always had political implications, because my status as the world champion gave me an opportunity to speak openly about problems that I believe were harming the future of my country.
So, jumping to current day, you've said some pretty powerful things. You compare President Putin to Hitler. You say he's a worse threat than ISIS. And people say that that demonization of the president is reckless and dangerous. They say maybe you're the new kind of Cold Warrior.
I understand why people react so aggressively, and they're so much irritated when they hear Hitler, but they don't remember the fact that Hitler is not just, a monster, absolute monster from history books. Unfortunately, before Hitler turned into this monster, he was a well-respected politician, and you don't have to hear, it's from me. Read Toronto Star in 1935 or in 1936. Read Globe and Mail. Read Washington Post. Hitler was on the cover of the Time magazine, and we heard the same arguments as today about Putin. Evil doesn't become evil in one day. It grows.
Do you think the West is blind to the danger? I mean,
absolutely. Putin has his fingertip on a nuclear button, and everything he cares today is only staying in power. And staying in power for him today means that he must demonstrate himself as the only savior of Russia against the enemies.
But do you run the risk of putting people off by making that analogy?
I do. I know I do. It's a huge risk.
For many people, isolation is not the route. They say that's more dangerous than engaging Russia.
I more than anyone else, I wanted Russia to be engaged. And I believe, and I still believe, that eventually Russia will become part of this future, a bright future for the human race, but not Putin's Russia. Putin's Russia is a virus. You don't engage the virus, because virus will contaminate the whole system. You have to contain it. Those who know, who understand Russian, they can hear it on Russian news. 24/7 propaganda machine that has been destroying the minds of ordinary Russians and created such an atmosphere of hatred. My mother is 78. She was born and raised under Stalin. She said she never heard anything of that magnitude, that was so poisonous and so dangerous, because it spoils, everything, that we believed in.
But Gary, you can't deny that there is a depth of support for President Putin inside Russia. We were there recently, we heard it often. He's given Russia back national pride. He's churning up this nationalism. He's saying to the West, stop meddling. They like that.
That's exactly what Western press wrote about Adolf Hitler. Every dictator is popular because it's like, you have a small town with only one restaurant available. So this is, how can you, deny that what is in the menu? You have nowhere else to eat.
So what's the option? I mean, certainly there is opposition in Russia. You were a very big part of it.
It's another mistake. There's no opposition in the fascist state. So yes, Boris Nemtsov, my very close friend, he was an opposition. He's murdered. So many others, like Alexei Navalny, they are either behind bars or about to go to jail.
You were friends with Nemtsov. You were in the trenches with him. You argued about tactics and strategies about opposing the Kremlin. But when you heard about this, what was your reaction?
I'm expecting everything from Putin's Russia, but for me it was a shock. Because Boris Nemtsov was not just a friend. I mean, this was a man who was so full of life. He didn't want to see another revolution scenario in Russia.
Was that kind of threat, which was carried out against Nemtsov, why you left Russia 2 years ago?
I left Russia after I received you may call it, invitation from Russian version of FBI, so the investigating committee, asking me to just to be a witness on several cases that they opened against our political activists. And I was abroad, and I spoke to Boris Nemtsov and to Alexei Navalny, and both told me, Gary, stay away, because you enter the building as a witness, and if you leave the building, most likely you'll be a suspect.
With Nemtsov dead, Navalny under constant threat of arrest and a suspended sentence, and you as an exile, really, in America, what is the choice and the option for a robust opposition inside Russia now?
Regimes like Putin's do not allow any robust opposition to function. But at the end of the day, it's all about middle class in Moscow, recognizing that Putin's rule brings Russia to a dead end. And we have no other choice but to rise. Nobody has doubts that Putin will die in Kremlin. He's not going anywhere. I mean, elections in Russia was a charade long time ago. The bad news, we don't know when. The good news, he also doesn't know when and how he's going to die.
Do you get frustrated knocking on Russia's door from outside?
Look, I've been playing under Soviet or Russian flags, so I'm probably one of the most decorated Soviet or Russian athletes. I was a captain of Russian chess team in 1992 Olympiad. We won the first medals for New Russia. I was the first athlete who refused to play under Soviet flag in 1990, played under the Russian flag. Of course I'm frustrated, because I want Russia to be part of the world, of the normal democratic world. But I believe that I have my own duty just to speak about these problems, and sometimes to be even provocative. I don't understand people don't want to hear these kind of messages, because it troubles them. They rather see the picture that is much brighter.
So you're provoking the West to do what? You've said the West has been complacent.
Wake up. Wake up. Recognize the true nature of Putin's regime. Again, it's not about trying to...
Sanctions?
Sanctions are very mild now. I mean, we should understand. Sanctions are mild, and more important, it's not just about them being weak. It's about West failing to communicate the message to Putin's cronies and to ordinary Russians that sanctions will not be lifted.
Gary, I can't let you go because viewers are sitting here saying, ask him about the real chess, the board, the game. You spent so many years anticipating your opponent's next move. Do you miss that mind match?
I decided to stop my professional career 10 years ago because I thought I did everything I could, even more, to make the difference at the board. But I never wanted, and I never will, divorce myself from the game of chess. I'm actively engaged in promoting the game, especially for education. I believe that chess belongs to the classroom at early age 6 to 9. Kids can learn a lot by playing chess, which helps them to improve their concentration, their sense of logic, sense of responsibility, cognitive skills.
Who are you watching now? Who's the best? Not just the number one, but who's the best? Who do you see?
It's a very simple answer. Of course, Magnus Carlsen, not because he is the world champion, but he is the player of unique qualities.
Is he better than you at the similar age? He broke your record younger. He won the number one.
No. I was still, a few months younger. So this is my record. He was also 22, but almost turning 23. So I still had few months to keep my record of the youngest world champion ever. I'm very cautious when being asked to compare players from different periods of chess history, because we learn from each other. So today I'll be no match for Magnus.
Do you see the world as a chessboard? And does anything that you learned as such a grand chess player help you to predict what your opponent's next move might be?
Oh, the world is far more complicated place than the chessboard, because in chess we have rules. And in many parts of the world, especially Russia, for instance, there are no rules. But what I learned from chess and what helps me to analyze the situation at this geopolitical, endless board, if you have a bad position, you have to take care of the safety of your king. So you cannot make long plans about a better pawn structure in the endgame. You have to survive. So I'm trying to be objective, and I'm trying to see the threat, the real threat. A few moves in advance. It's not because I had a crystal ball or had enough Nostradamus qualities, but because I just realized there's the trend. That's what we learn in chess. There's a trend, and you have to understand it, and then you can start making correct predictions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.